The tragic case of Kylie Toberman takes yet another turn. Her adoptive mother is now arrested after a search warrant is executed at the scene of Kylie's murder. Now, the brother of Kylie's accused killer is speaking out, saying he could have been stopped.
Someone that I've known for a long time just lost their daughter. She was murdered.
This is Scandal, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Gillespie. Kylie Toberman was only 14 years old when she was found murdered in her own backyard. Investigators say her adoptive brother strangled her with jumper cables and then hid her body in an RV. We first reported on this case on Scandal last week, and since news of Kylie's murder broke, there have been a lot more details to come out, including a second arrest in the case, this time Kylie's adoptive mother. She was arrested and charged after a search warrant was served on her property, the same home where Kylie lived and where her body would be found just hours after she was reported missing. And I want to dig into all of the new details in this case, and we will, hearing from those closest to Kylie and later today's guest, a retired commander straight out of Illinois, where this case takes place. But first, let me start by talking about Kylie. She was born as Kylie Marie Coots on January 21st, 2011. That means her birthday was coming up in just a few weeks. But Kylie never made it to her 15th birthday. Instead, she was murdered at age 14 on November 14th, 2025. Kylie lived in Vandalia, Illinois, a city about 3.5 hours south of Chicago and just an hour east of St. Louis. There, Kylie lived with her two half-sisters and her adoptive mother, Donna Toberman, who we're going to come back to later. But that's how Kylie got the legal last name Toberman. According to the Illinois Department of Children and Families, Kylie was adopted back in 2018. Kylie's grandmother told local TV station KSDK, quote, "We have had minimal contact with her with the adoption that had taken place due to extenuating circumstances. We had no information that there was such a dangerous, volatile situation that she was in." Kylie's biological mom, Megan Zeller, told KSDK that she hadn't seen Kylie in 7 years since the adoption that happened after a domestic situation. Megan says DCFS took away Kylie and her two half-sisters, Cora and Camilla. They were placed in the custody of Cora and Camilla's grandmother, Donna Toberman. So for the past 7 years, Kylie has lived in Vandalia with her two sisters and their grandmother, who is now her legal guardian and adoptive mother. And it was through Donna Toberman that Kylie would be connected with Arnold Rivera, the man now accused of murdering her. Arnold is Donna's son, meaning he's Kylie's adoptive brother. Prior reporting said that he was her step-uncle, but that's not true. He's her adoptive brother, but they're not related biologically at all. Now, initially, there were some reports that he lived in the same home as Kylie in Vandalia, including a KSDK report that Arnold lived in the home while Donna was recovering from surgery. And that's also what Kylie's biological mom says happened. However, the Department of Children and Family Services says they did not live together. Arnold did not live in the home. Even still, investigators say it was Rivera who killed Kylie. She was reported missing at about 6:30 a.m. on Friday, November 14th. And just hours later, her body was found in an RV on Donna Toberman's property. Investigators later revealed she had been strangled to death with jumper cables, and her body was hidden in a tote somewhere inside of that RV. The investigation quickly pointed in the direction of Arnold B. Rivera, and the charges soon followed. Taking a quick look at the court documents, they read in part, quote, "The state's attorney of said county charges that on or about the 13th day of November 2025 in Fayette County, Illinois, Arnold B. Rivera committed the offense of first-degree murder in that said defendant, without lawful justification and with the intent to kill KT, meaning Kylie Toberman, strangled KT with jumper cables, thereby causing the death of KT. In all, Arnold Rivera was charged with first-degree murder, criminal sexual assault, and concealed homicidal death." And we still have so many questions about all of this. Like, what are the details of the way that Kylie's body was concealed? And what happened in regards to this alleged sexual assault? And really, what were the moments that led up to Kylie's murder? Was there an argument? Was there a fight? What happened? These are all questions we're going to discuss in our interview, but for now, Illinois investigators haven't released much on that end. And that's where we have to turn to social media. It's really where a lot of the information in this case comes from because Kylie's close friends and family have come forward begging for justice. So let's start with her biological mom, Megan. Megan has been really outspoken, like in this post where she writes, quote, "Kylie Toberman Coots is my daughter. I was young and dumb. I thought I could trust somebody, and now my baby is an angel. I will not shut up or stop till my child gets justice." Megan has shared many photos of Kylie, memorials, a GoFundMe page that describes Kylie's personality. It reads in part, quote, "Kylie was known for her caring heart and the way she made everyone around her feel included. She was a loyal friend, a devoted sister, and someone who could brighten any room simply by being in it. Kylie was also an incredible young wrestler, earning awards for her determination, discipline, and talent, qualities she carried into every part of her life." On top of all of the tributes for Kylie, Megan has voiced her concern about Kylie's living situation and need for justice. On November 19th, she wrote, "Not every action deserves a reaction. People change. Situations change. I don't have any sympathy for pedophilia. #arrest Donna." Then, just one day later after this post, November 20th, Donna was in fact arrested. After Kylie's murder, an arrest warrant was served by the Illinois State Police, Vandalia Police Department, and the Child Death Investigation Task Force, and it was served on Donna Toberman's property. According to ISP, quote, "During the search, multiple firearms were located inside the home, and law enforcement verified Donna Toberman does not possess a valid firearm owner's identification card." This information was presented to the Fayette County State's Attorney's Office, and Donna Toberman was then charged with 4 counts of unlawful possession of a firearm without requisite firearm identification card. So Donna was arrested and booked into the Fayette County Jail. Now, those are the only charges Donna faces at the moment, but there are allegations that Kylie's living situation was unsafe. And if that's true, there could be more charges down the line. But back to Kylie's biological mom, Megan. She told KSDK that back in January, she reported Kylie's unsafe conditions to the Department of Children and Family Services, but nothing happened. Kylie's other grandmother said the same thing. Here's what she told local TV stations, quote, "They were called several times since January from several different people, and they didn't do anything." The person who has been most outspoken about all of this is Paige Stone. Paige's daughter was best friends with Kylie, and Paige's ex is Arnold Rivera. Now, Paige made a video and posted it to Facebook saying she herself reported Kylie's situation to DCFS multiple times, but was turned away.
In January, I had reported him to DCFS multiple times because of the living conditions of the house he was in at that time and the concerns I had about Kylie Toberman. My daughter, Avion, was the biggest advocate for that girl. Kylie would tell my daughter would tell me, and I would report it to DCFS. DCFS told me there was nothing they can do until Kylie spoke up. There was comments even made back then that what is it going to take for someone to believe her or us? Either she's going to get pregnant or she's going to end up dead. Now she's dead. The system has failed Kylie Toberman. The system has failed my kids to protect them. That whole family, Tobermans and Rivera, is monsters.
And once again, we're going to talk about DCFS more during our interview, but I want to make sure that I tell both sides here. So I'm going to insert a statement from DCFS about all of these allegations. It reads, quote, "DCFS extends our deepest sympathy to Kylie's family, friends, and community, and are thankful to law enforcement who apprehended the suspect following this terrible tragedy. At the request of the Fayette County State's Attorney, DCFS cannot comment on law enforcement's active criminal investigation, but can confirm that after Kylie was adopted in 2018, she was no longer a youth in care of DCFS. To further clarify, Mr. Rivera was not Kylie's guardian, nor did he live in the same home as her. DCFS is committed to working collaboratively with law enforcement and the Southern Region Child Death Investigation Task Force as the case proceeds." According to that same video posted by Paige Stone, Paige says Kylie actually went missing on November 13th, the day before she was reported missing, which, by the way, is the same thing that the court documents allege. She also mentions Donna Toberman in that video, saying she was with Arnold the day he was arrested. And by the way, Paige calls Arnold a nickname BJ in the video. She says Kylie's adoptive mother and adoptive brother ran errands the morning she was reported missing. I'll let her explain.
At 5 o'clock that morning, he called his mom and said Kylie didn't come home last night. Donna said her phone was off the night before, that she turned on her phone at 5 o'clock Friday morning, and she got a text from BJ saying that she needed to call. When she called, he had told her Kylie did not come home the night before, so she told him to report her missing. When he reported her missing, that's when Donna had ended up coming down, and Donna had to report her missing because she's the legal guardian of Kylie. Donna gets down to Vandalia, reports her missing. BJ and Donna decided to go shopping. They went to Walmart, they ran errands, and so whatever the case may be. Donna said that BJ showed no signs. He was normal.
Paige also shared what she says is a recording of a phone call that BJ, Arnold Rivera, made to her after Kylie was killed.
What do you mean lost it? I just lost it. Don't do nothing stupid. My kids need you, BJ. They ain't gonna have me in prison, so don't. They're better off collecting my Social Security. And you just please stress to them that I am totally sorry, and I know they'll never forgive me, and that's all right. But tell them we love them, and for what it's worth. So.
Now, there's another video that is circulating on social media too, and it was actually posted to Kylie's biological mom's Facebook. And this video was posted by Arnold Rivera's former stepbrother. In the video, he claims that Arnold, or BJ, confessed to him that he planned to kill the mother of his children, meaning he planned to kill Paige Stone, the woman whose video you just watched. Take a look.
I need to take a second to share something with everybody that's been weighing really heavy on my mind tonight. Someone that I've known for a long time just lost their daughter. She was murdered. She was murdered by the son of the woman that used to be married to my father. Years ago, for the first time in a long time, I decided to join them for Thanksgiving at my dad's house. He was there when we got there. And after everybody went to bed, he came to me while everybody was sleeping, and he said he was going to kill his daughter's mother, his kid's mother. He went on to tell me about how he stole a van from a small car lot in Decatur, which was hidden in the garage. Told me how he drove to her house with plans to kill her, and that when he got there, she had company there that he wasn't expecting. Then he went on to tell me about how he planned to go back and finish it.
Jeff Toberman, the stepbrother, alleges that this was so shocking, he turned the information over to police right away.
And that wasn't something that I could let sit on my conscience. So I did what I hope anybody in a situation like that would do, and I did make the phone call to have him picked up and arrested, and reported that night, everything that he told me. I mean, change my mind if you want to try to. But that falls under attempted murder, had they done their jobs appropriately. But they didn't. They didn't do their jobs appropriately, and they didn't investigate that as they should have. That man should have went to prison for attempted murder. And because the justice system failed us in that situation as well, this woman lost her daughter.
So far, police have not commented on that video, saying whether they've investigated this as an accusation or even that they received a tip at all. And I'm going to talk about this allegation during our interview because if it's true, it's huge. So TBD on that allegation, but there are other allegations that were definitely reported to police because they eventually yielded charges. KSDK reports that Arnold Rivera was charged in the year 2000 with burglary and criminal sexual abuse of a child between ages 9 and 16. At the time, he reached a deal with prosecutors, so he ended up pleading guilty to felony aggravated battery after prosecutors dismissed that charge about child sex abuse. People magazine reports that a few years later in 2008, he was convicted of possession of a stolen car, and for both incidents, he was sentenced to probation. But it's a different story for the allegation of murder. If convicted in the state of Illinois, Arnold or BJ Rivera could face life in prison. But the thing is, we're still so early on in this case. I mean, at the time of this recording, it's been less than 2 weeks since Kylie's murder, and all of that means we're still so early on in the investigation. So who better to ask questions to than an investigator himself? That's today's guest. It's retired Detective Commander Will Svilar. Will, thank you so much for coming on Scandal. It's so great to talk to you every time. And let's start today with the newest information. We have a second arrest in this case, kind of related because a search warrant was executed on the property of the crime scene, but it's a gun charge. Could it later somehow be related, even though it doesn't appear to be right now?
It looks like in this situation is like you said, you establish probable cause, you make an arrest. Okay. Now you have to start to set up for the trial and you gather all the evidence you can to complete the investigation. As part of the investigation, a search warrant of the residence is expected. Now, once you're in the residence and you have legal authority to be there, what you find is what you find. And if you find another thing that's a criminal offense, for instance, weapons in a house where there's no FOID card, you make that charge. If you found drugs in the house when you were executing that warrant, you charge that as well. So I don't know that the weapons have anything to do with it, but it is also something that was found in the course of the investigation, which you just don't turn your head on it. You just can't ignore it.
Right. It makes sense that it's, they're doing their job. You're going through and searching for clues in regards to this murder. But if you find something else illegal, of course, you're going to, take note and likely arrest this person. However, when I started researching this case, a lot of allegations came out about Kylie living in an unsafe environment. This was her adoptive mother who has since been arrested and charged kind of unrelated to her murder, but related in a way. And there are accusations that Kylie was in a harmful situation. And so I started thinking, actually back to Illinois, I was thinking of Al Capone himself, who we all know, he was arrested and charged for tax evasion. That's what took him down. And so I'm wondering if these unrelated gun charges could be something similar to that.
Well, like I said, they found the weapons in the residence. They charged it accordingly. Now, we talk about the injurious environment. You talk about bringing children up in an unsafe environment. This girl was in with her adoptive mother and her son, is what I understand. Mm-hmm. I also, as I read about this case, I read that there was a lot of complaints to DCFS. That is going to be a big part of the investigation moving forward. DCFS is responsible for these children, and they are supposed to have people go out to make visits to the home. They're supposed to follow up on investigations. The problem that I ran into, and I don't want to rip DCFS, but the problem I've run into with DCFS over the years is there are so many charges to one investigator. So in trying to clear these cases up, or trying to follow up with these allegations, sometimes things slip through the cracks. And unfortunately, when we talk about slipping through the cracks, we're talking about children. And we can't do that. We have to be better.
It's so sad that we have to even have a department like DCFS to do this, but obviously we need them because there are a lot of cases like this. And to your point, it's an overwhelming number. There are so many cases of kids who are in these bad situations, living environments. And I hate to think that some things fell through the cracks, but I'm glad that you brought it up because that's something that Kylie's family has been very outspoken about, saying DCFS was called multiple times to this home. There were red flags made, and actually one of her family friends kind of related to her in a way through marriage, through, her best friend's mom. Anyway, somebody who knew her very well reported this to DCFS, and allegedly DCFS said, okay, well, we can't do anything unless Kylie herself comes forward and says something's happening. Now, I'm pushing back on that a little bit because she's 14 years old. If an adult is reporting, some sort of bad situation, shouldn't that be taken, accounted for?
Well, to suggest that DCFS said we can't do anything because the 14-year-old won't come forward, I don't buy that. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't buy into that. If there's a complaint made to DCFS, they're obligated to follow it up. Now, I don't know what their time frame is on following these allegations up, but you don't ask a 14-year-old who is possibly being held in an injurious environment if they're okay. You have to observe whether or not they're okay. And you do other investigations. You talk to other people. You certainly talk to the person that makes the complaint and say, hey, why did you say this happened? Did she say something to you? But you don't rely on a minor to come forward and talk about things like that if they're still living in the house because of the fear and everything else that's involved with that.
Right, especially if there's grooming, if she's afraid to speak out because this is the home that she lives in. There are so many factors that we need to consider in all of this. I hope that's not the case, but I know that DCFS has a lot of heat under it right now because of all of this, because of the allegations that there were multiple calls to them. And I'm sure that investigators are taking a look at all of that and, sifting through all of the information. One of the things that DCFS has been outspoken about rather, is that the alleged murderer here, Arnold B. Rivera, he did not live in the house. However, there have been reports that her adoptive mother, Donna Toberman, was going through some sort of surgery recovery process. I mean, that makes sense. However, at that point, then Arnold, I guess, her alleged murderer, was living at the home. So how can two things be true if DCFS says, yeah, he didn't live here? Okay, yeah, maybe he didn't have it on his license. My license right now has 2 addresses ago. Maybe, I don't live there anymore. Maybe he was staying there. Is that something that they need to take a closer look at?
Yes, they do. And I'll tell you why I say that. If his driver's license says that he lives at that residence, I don't care where he's living. What should have happened, since in his past, he has, he was accused of a sexual abuse but not convicted. So if he's accused of a sexual abuse and not convicted, he doesn't have to register. Now, if you're DCFS and you run a name or you run an address and you look at whether or not sexual predators live there or someone who's a registered sex offender. But if he's not convicted, that could have fallen through the cracks.
Okay, you brought up something really important in all of this, the fact that he was accused of these child sex crimes 25 years ago, literally, the year 2000. However, he reached a plea deal, so he pled guilty to a different charge, and these child sex crimes charges were taken off. He was no longer charged with them. He was not convicted, so he didn't have to register as a sex offender. That is scary. The fact that now he's accused once again of sexual assault of a child, in addition to murder. How does all of this work? Because it should have been a red flag, but he wasn't convicted of it. I mean, does that make things more convoluted?
Well, in law enforcement, if I'm running somebody's name, I can get access to what they were charged with, not just what they were convicted with. Sometimes when other agencies run names for background checks, they don't have access to what the charges were, only the convictions. So in any event, you don't want to say the system's failed this kid, but I believe the system failed this poor kid. Okay. Do we have to be better? Yeah, we have to be better than what we're doing, protecting children. And DCFS, their caseloads are super high. There's a lot of situations where I'll tell you as a supervisor, if I had a bunch of detectives that had 6, 7 pending cases, I'm asking about that. Hey, what's going on with this case? Are you making any progress in this case? And if they have a case in front of them where they see, okay, this girl lives with an adoptive parent. It's not a foster, it's adoptive. Maybe she's okay. you prioritize. And the problem is when you do stuff like that, when you're talking about humans and you're talking about children, you lose stuff. And it's just not acceptable.
It's hard to say definitively, yes, the system failed here. She was failed. But that is what her friends and family have come out and said unequivocally. We raised the red flags. We were, crying out for help. And one time after another, things just kind of fell by the wayside. We talked about that accused sexual assault of a child back in the year 2000 that we know prosecutors kind of wiped away. But additionally, there's now a video that is circulating on social media of the defendant, Arnold Rivera's stepbrother, who says that at some point he confessed to him and said, yeah, I want to kill my the mother of my children. I'm planning to kill my girlfriend, my ex, whoever she was at the time. And he reported it to police and said, okay, something's going on here. However, there have been no charges in relation to attempted murder or anything in regards to all of that. But do you think that investigators now would want to talk to this stepbrother and say, hey, what happened there?
Absolutely. If he's alleging that he came forward and he started to confess about his homicidal ideologies of whatever, you talk to that guy because he's got direct conversation with the defendant, not third party, not I heard from somebody else, but direct conversation with the defendant. Now, as in law enforcement, when we're talking about charging a case, we talk about the events leading up to the murder, the evidence that links him with the murder. When you talk about the family saying they raised red flags and all this stuff was going on for months, it's part of your investigation. But criminally, we're looking at Rivera as the offender. Are we looking at other people in the family that may have contributed to this girl being in this environment? Yeah, but that's a different thing than prosecuting the murder.
Okay, so let's talk about that because you're right. That is what's paramount here, that a 14-year-old girl was killed. According to investigators, she was strangled with jumper cables and her body was found in an RV on her own property, not far from her home where she should have felt safe. Now, investigators say, we've narrowed in, we've got our defendant. It's this Arnold Rivera guy. My question for all of this is, what led up to the murder? I mean, is that something we may never know? Or is that something that investigators are trying to figure out? I mean, how do you go from just a normal Friday, she gets home from school, to all of a sudden she's being strangled with jumper cables? That's a huge escalation there. How do detectives figure out what happened?
You have to speak to the adopted mother. She was present in that house, and you know that wasn't the first time Rivera was in that house. Okay? So you have to speak to her, and she's got to lay out what happened. All right? She should have some sort of emotional connection with this poor little girl, right? I mean, she's her adoptive stepmother. She has to say what happened inside that house. So that's someone who knows what's going on, whether she says so or not. She has to be talked to about that. And can you make her accountable? Maybe, depending on what she has to say.
I feel like it gets so tricky when families are involved because we have the adoptive mother whose biological son is accused of murdering her adoptive daughter. I mean, that's just messy to have to say at all, but that's, what we're dealing with here. And even to add another layer into all of this, there is this alleged phone call. Now, I'm going to say right here, this hasn't been released by police. However, it has been released by the ex of our defendant here, Arnold Rivera. And this is a phone conversation in which he allegedly confesses to the crime. She has a recording of it where he's saying, I just lost it. This is what happened. Explain this to me. I mean, police haven't released it. It makes sense to me that they haven't. However, she posted it to her social media. Is that something that police are going to want to take a look at, verify, so that prosecutors could later use if this does go to a jury trial?
When you talk about recordings, Illinois is a two-party state. You can't, unless you have a court order, you can't record somebody without their knowledge. Now, that's fruits of the poisonous tree. You can't use it. But it'll also, as an investigator, you're gonna pay close attention to that, and she'll have to testify to the content of that. Even if you don't use that recording, she can testify to this is what he said. A direct conversation, this is what he said. I don't think you get that recording in.
That's why I'm glad we had you on specifically, because you're out of Illinois, you know the laws, and that was going to be my question. Can we have this, in the jury trial? So no, we likely can't have the actual recording, but we do have her testimony saying this is what he said to me. Additionally, she said that The morning that Kylie was reported missing, both Donna, the woman who was arrested for the firearms charges, and then Arnold, the person who's accused of the murder, were out running errands. I guess they went to Walmart. They were just, going about their day. That is shocking to me. If a 14-year-old girl in their family, adoptive or not, who cares, is missing and they're out running errands, I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, you talk about an adoptive parent and a biological parent, two different things. And I'm not saying that adoptive parents don't love their children, because they do, but I'm going to tell you what I've run into in the past. A lot of people where children are placed with families, foster families, adoptive families, in some cases they don't do it for love, they do it for money, because there's subsidies behind that. They're paid to be foster parents. I've been in homes where there are 7 foster kids and a 70-year-old woman is the foster mother. You can't keep track. And again, I don't know if that's the case, and I don't know the circumstances of why this woman adopted this girl. I don't know the circumstances behind that. But when you run into situations like that, blood's thicker than water.
It's so sad because there are so many cases in which adoption and foster care is so great for kids. And, I know kids who've been adopted, they love their parents. I mean, that's the way it is. But then it's the same thing with anything. How in school we have a million great teachers and there's that one bad apple who's accused of sex crimes against children. It's the same here. There could be the bad apple in this situation. And it seems like as we talk more and more about the case, Kylie was just in a terrible situation. I know we're still so early on. We're about 2 weeks since she was murdered. What do you think is ahead in the investigation? Because we've already seen multiple arrests. Do you think there could be more charges coming down?
There could be. There absolutely could be. They're going to be doing investigations. They're going to be doing, processing the crime scene of all the evidence they collected on a search warrant. They're going to speak to people. They're going to do a lot of interviews leading up to this prosecution, and you don't know where that's going to go. I would say, the stepmother has knowledge of something. This is not the first time that something happened between this Rivera and this poor little girl. And did the mother turn the other cheek? If she did, she's accountable. The stepmother, I should say.
I really struggle to find words for a case like this, because when it comes down to it, the bottom line is this girl was 14 years old. That is a life cut far too short. And the way that she died and the abuse that she endured it's just so hard to think about. I do hope for some form of justice for her friends and family who knew Kylie and are keeping her memory alive. It's a really messy case. So Will Svilar, thank you for coming on and walking us through it.
Sure, my pleasure.
I want to end today's episode on a note from one of Kylie's closest friends, Caitlin Schellenbarger. She says that they've been best friends since Kylie was in preschool. She spoke out to local TV station KSDK and she said, quote, "It broke my heart because she shouldn't have had to go through that. She was the sweetest person and she had so much life left to live. I mean, she was only 14 years old. When I found out, I was distraught and taken aback because I never would have guessed he could be that type of person and that could happen in the small town of Vandalia. I think that Arnold is a disgusting man and that should have never happened. I think that she was failed." And that's where today's Scandal episode leaves us for now. For the latest updates in this case and all things in the world of true crime, make sure that you subscribe to our channel. If you want to reach out to the Scandal Squad, you can do so via our tip line. It's scandal@lawandcrime.com. And if you want to reach out to me personally on social media like Instagram, you can follow me at Sierra Gillespie. Thanks for watching today's episode of Scandal. As always, I'm your host, Sierra Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.